the show begin. Next generation for the win. We're going all in. All together now, let's begin. Let the show begin.
Okay, yeah, this afternoon we are here together with the co-founders of Seek Sophie, Jacinta as well as Lina. Maybe let's start off by with you guys telling us a little bit more about your founding story. Yeah.
So we started Seek Sophie to find travel experiences for travelers like ourselves, because when we were looking all around, when we were planning our trips, we just couldn't find a site that spoke to us as travelers. So we wanted things that were a little bit more alternative, a little bit more off the beaten path, non-touristy kind of experiences. And that's how we were traveling, and that's how our friends were traveling. But there wasn't a site that spoke to us like that. And so we decided to build it ourselves.
So at the beginning, what was the starting process like? What was the first activity that you had on the platform, and why did you choose that to be the first?
So we actually launched Seek Sophie back in February 2018 across 4 markets in Southeast Asia. That's 4 countries. But when we were first thinking about what we want to be one of the first activities, how do we get them? We thought the only way we're really going to know if they are the type that we can stand behind, the type that are going to be non-touristy, is if we get out there and look for them ourselves on the ground. So that's when I hit the road, traveling across Southeast Asia, going door to door, speaking with local guides, trying to identify what are those hidden gems in their backyards, asking them what are they most proud of in their countries. And one of the very first places that I was told about was the Kinabatangan River. I was told it was one of the longest rivers in Borneo, super biodiverse, lots of endemic wildlife, pygmy elephants, orangutans. And once I finally got there and I was standing on the banks of the river, I was thinking, wow, this is a place that feels kind of familiar. And it's not that I'd ever visited, but I kind of felt like I'd seen it in the documentaries of my childhood and, Nat Geo documentaries. And really the thrill felt like that. Like, when you're a child and you're watching that going down the river, waiting for the pygmy elephants to emerge from the green grass. It was incredible. And I thought, this is exactly the type of explorer journey that we want to start with. And that was one of the very first bookable experiences on the site.
So I think when you first started, you did mention to me separately that, 80% of your customers were actually from Europe and Americas because they were more drawn to these type of experiences. But you also gradually realized that, maybe extreme adventure or things that take 20 hours to go to was not suitable for everyone, right? So how did you slowly loosen the parameters and figure out, that sweet spot and arrive eventually at off the beaten path adventures? Yeah.
So at the beginning, our customers were super cool. We would Google all of them and would stalk all of them. So we had French documentary makers, we had travel writers, and we had New York Times photographers as our initial customers. And I don't know whether you know the restaurant. There's this restaurant in New York. It's going to be a segue called Momofuku. Mm-hmm. And yes, by David Chang. It's a very famous restaurant. And he basically said that he knew his restaurant was going to work because that was where all the chefs would go after they finished their shifts. So it's a restaurant that chefs themselves would want to go to. And I think for us, it was the moment where we were like, well, actually, people who are traveling for a living are opting to use our site to plan their own personal travels. And this is really cool. That's when we knew it was going to work. And at that point in time, we were going for very extreme adventures, like you said, when we first started. So it was 130 million year old rainforest in Borneo that nobody had ever heard about, only discovered in the 1970s. And when you go there, you're one of the 5 people that are in this entire rainforest. And those experiences take about 20 hours to get to, very bumpy car rides. And it was actually COVID that when all the borders closed on us, and, none of these experiences were available to us anymore, that we looked around and we thought, okay, what are some hidden gems that are available in our backyards? Because people still want to discover, people still want to explore. And, there were disappearing kelongs, there were hidden rooftop bee farms, and just really heartfelt experiences that were just, plain sight in our backyards, and people wanted to do that. So once we started putting that on Seek Sophie, we thought, wow, that's amazing reception, right? People just really responded to it. And if we can do that in the most touristed of cities, if we can find these really hidden gems in places that people think, I've lived here my whole life, and I never knew that existed, I really want to go see them, then we can do that for all the rest of the places in the region, and even the places that are really, really touristed that people think they know everything about, like Bali. We managed to find things like firefly safaris with a conservationist. You can go dive with a marine biologist and repropagate the coral reefs. So really interesting things like that. And that's what we also started putting on the platform after reopening, as well as the really extreme adventures.
So I think COVID was clearly a very strong time for innovation for a lot of travel brands, including Seek Sophie. And I think yesterday you also did mention that was when your creator community really started forming also. So how has that changed? Your relationship with your creator community shifted since COVID till now, or has it largely been the same?
I think the creator community I mentioned yesterday, that was formed because we wanted to support small local businesses during COVID, because the partners that we work with are small mom and pop shops. And they're not, famous attractions that everybody knows about. So you need to tell stories about them and talk about how amazing they are before people actually know about them. And then on the other hand, we had, a photography community that was very, very strong. And that was our early community as well. And they wanted to tell stories, but all their gigs overseas were all, shut down, right? So they couldn't actually travel anymore. They couldn't produce content for community because there was no more like international content. So we thought, why not let's link them both up, the mom and pop shops on one hand and the creators on the other hand. And it's a win-win situation. The creators can tell these amazing stories about the small businesses, and the small businesses will get a lot more visibility. And it was a time of, everybody was rallying behind support local as well. So that was great. And as the borders reopened, we started sending the creators out for international experiences. And I think because of how close they got during COVID, like people were doing these experiences like every week together. People were hanging out on the weekends. Like even now, when I look at IG, I see that they're all hanging out weekends together. I'm like, oh, they're all Seek Sophie
Without
creators.
you?
Without me, I'm not invited. But it's a very, very strong community. And I think the foundations of that was built during COVID. And now it's really nice to see that, and they go traveling together and everyone's all friends. But I think the stories that come out of that are also very organic. And our creators have also become a very strong feedback loop for us. So if there's anything about experiences that they don't like, we'll tweak it, we'll change it for our customers, that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's been amazing.
So I think aside from your creators, your staff also experience a lot of these activities yourselves. You constantly encourage them to try. I think previously you also mentioned that even your customer service staff also get a chance to go and experience these activities themselves, so that they can also better explain how it works to your customers, right? I know that you were also saying that some of your friends have started giving you Seek Sophie experiences as birthday gifts. Does that ever get tiring? Like for you to keep having to check your own experiences, or, even like it goes into a part of your personal lives?
I'll answer it quickly and I'll let Lina answer. But I think it's great. Okay, so I'm also guilty of that. All my nieces, all my family, all my friends also get Seek Sophie experiences for their birthdays, and Lina as well. So once like Lina has like a new like thing that she's interested in, like this year was gardening, so I gave her like a gardening experience. But I think it's great because those are the only experiences that I want to go on myself. And, when my friends give it to me, I'm actually super excited. And it's a great thing to do, I think, because it started in COVID, right? Everyone's looking for interesting things to do and experience. And so Seek Sophie became like this like foundational thing for people to, okay, I'm bored this weekend. What am I going to do? And that has carried over. I did that every weekend as well. Like whenever I had friends visiting, I'd be like, okay, what's on Seek Sophie to do? So I think that, yeah, it never gets tiring because it's what we love, right?
Yeah, just to follow on that. So there are times when we might be talking to a particular new partner, or we hope they'll become a new partner. And I know Jacinta's birthday is coming up. I think I have to close this now because I want to get this for her birthday. I think she's going to really like it. So it's sometimes this motivation that knowing that we'll give it to, for each other for our birthdays. And then also, my friends and family know that whenever they go on a trip with me, if it's not a Seek Sophie experience yet, it's going to become one once we get there, unless, it doesn't go our way, something's not quite right. So I think we just really enjoy it first. And then, it is vital. It is vital. And I mentioned this yesterday that our team does travel a lot. We go and everybody from our business development, our marketing, and yes, as you mentioned, customer service team, we go to experience it because we think that it's super important to that all of our partners, all of our experiences know not only that they are really great and fun and non-touristy, but also to make sure that they are safe and that we don't work with the types of partners that we wouldn't want on our platform, we wouldn't want to recommend. We've had personal experiences ourselves. I mentioned one yesterday that, quite a scary experience getting barged in, while I'm changing by a local guide, and wanted to make sure that that doesn't happen to our customers. So yeah, both really fun and exciting, but super, super important as well.
Okay, so Seek Sophie is very big on, making sure that you guys avoid places that are over touristed, and you try to push people out of, the main places where people would land, right? But what are your kind of like benchmarks for what is considered over touristed? Yeah.
Well, so the great majority of our experiences are in areas that we're not quite in that position where we're afraid that it might become over touristed, right? We tend to go quite far off grid, but there are a couple of locations where we see that we know that it's quite touristed. We know a lot of customers or a lot of travelers go through them. In those situations, we try and see, is there value in continuing to work here, in continuing to provide this experience to our customers? And if there is, we try to find a way to do it better. How do we make sure that a particular experience respects the local communities, the wildlife, the nature? So as an example, Mount Batur, quite touristy. I don't think we can say that it's not, right? Over 600 people going every morning for sunrise. But we thought it's really great. We've been there ourselves. The views are amazing. How do we do it better? So we've gone out to find a new partner who is offering an alternative route. Maybe a couple dozen people a day at most reach that particular area for sunrise viewing. And he also engages a different part of the community that typically wouldn't see the tourism dollars. And customers have really responded. It's become one of our most popular experiences with great reviews, most heartfelt reviews. So I think there's demand for those types of experiences that take people just a little bit further away without having to compromise and saying, we don't want to offer it at all.
You did tell me in an earlier chat that your experiences are naturally also self-limiting because you have the guides or the partners that you work with are also champions of their own communities. Do you have any examples of like how they've kind of like put their foot down in terms of like maybe expanding the tour sizes and all that?
Sure. So if I think about some of the locations like a couple of places around Ho Chi Minh City, right? We work with a partner there who is, she has her own family. She is very protective of, the community. Of course, you can go to the tunnels. There's a lot going on there. But in her particular area, she only wants to take a couple of people every day. She doesn't want to overdo it. She wants to make sure she develops strong relationships with the customers that arrive to her, right? And there's multiple other examples, whether it be on the Kinabatangan River, where I mentioned to you myself. There are certain protections there in place. capacity of the lodges that they can build. They cannot exceed certain sizes. And I think they're all also looking out for each other, making sure that they don't overdo it, that they don't build in too many rooms.
So I think what's next for Seek Sophie in terms of expansion? I think Siu Hun mentioned that you have very aggressive plans, right, in 2028, but and some goals to hit in 2028 as well. So what are some kind of like thoughts about expansion, whether it's like, you know, it's still within the region or is it going to be out of Asia?
I think how we've done it has been very organic so far. So a lot of times we also take cues from our community. You know, we have a very, very passionate community and we do get very long letters, sometimes like, you know, long like A4 and like, you know, 2 or 3 pages letters basically saying, I've just gone to this farm and this place. This whole thing is like built by one person by hand. And like she spent like 3 years building it and it's amazing. And you have to come here. So we do take into account a lot of what our community says. So if they say, look, you really need to go to this place next because it's right on the cusp, right? Like people are starting to know about it. You really need to be there and like meet all these people. And we will go into new markets that way. So right now the plan, I mean, as a startup, I'm sure you know, you don't really there's no like 10-year plan, right? There is
maybe 10 months.
if you're lucky, right? If you're lucky. And I think that's kind of how we've always looked at it. Okay, where are our customers? Where do they want us to go into? Where are the interesting opportunities? So for the next year, we know, okay, we're going to be in Asia and can we cover like all the really cool experiences in Asia? And then after that is, okay, where else are we interested in? Have we covered all of Asia? Are we happy with it? Is there still more way to go? And I suspect not. But you know, maybe it's like South America, maybe it's Africa. They're like all these places that we love ourselves. So selfishly, we're like, okay, we really need to get this new like continent unlocked so that we can go there ourselves. But I think in the next year or two, it will be Asia. Yeah.
Okay. I think there's a lot of you know, hope that the generations to come, right, are a lot more aware about sustainability, and they will become a lot more conscious in the way that they travel. What is your hope for, you know, the future of travel?
I think my hope for future travel is quite simple. It's just, can we raise the level of awareness, right? Can we have a little bit more of these conversations? Because even when we talk about young generations, I think there's certain parts of the world where they're having a lot more of these conversations than other parts of the world, you know, and certain parts of the world, they're saying, don't fly anymore, take a boat, right? Or take the train. And then other parts of the world, there's still less awareness about, look, you know, don't feed wildlife. If you're doing something and you get to take a selfie of a wildlife, it's not great, right? So I think in terms of the level of awareness, we're not quite there yet. And I hope that in the next 5 years, next 10 years, people will not only be talking about, okay, I want to go to this place because it's very cool, it's very fun, I saw these great photos. They'll also be talking about what is the impact of how I'm traveling to this place. Is my travels going to make it better for the people who are there? Is my travels going to make it better for the wildlife that's there? Or is my travel going to make it worse? So if we start having those conversations and see those conversations and, you know, happening more frequently in how people make travel decisions, I think it could be really, really powerful, because I think the reason why we started Seek Sophie is because we believe that each traveler can make a massive difference. It's literally just how you choose. Do you go with a local guide, right? Do you go with this experience that takes a less touristy path? Do you stay in this villa that's locally owned as opposed to like this big chain that is, you know, owned by like foreigners? All these micro decisions can really help change the world. And as long as we're a little bit more aware, I think all of these decisions will stack up, and together as travelers, it could really be a very powerful like force for change.
I totally agree with what you say, because especially now with, you know, social media influencing so much of that travel decision, if people share a lot more about the experiences that they have choicefully picked, it could make a much bigger impact than just what one person could do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we can spend a little bit more time when we are posting the selfie, when we are talking about our travels, if we can talk about the kind of the conscious choices that we've made, the questions that we've asked ourselves. And I guess that's kind of the main hope for myself is that as people within this industry, and that includes the travelers, the OTAs, the operators on the ground, whenever we're participating in this industry, if we can just all ask ourselves that question, like what I'm doing, is it making the world a better place?
All right, that's all the questions I have. Thanks, ladies.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
They're ready now. Let the show begin. Next generation for the win. We're going all in. Take center stage now. Let's begin. Let the show